What's up, guys? Lucky Locks here. Welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 169, Ward versus Walker. And we are live from Texas in this one, in a familiar venue. And it should be a good night of fights. I'm looking forward to getting right into it. So let's do just that. Let's talk about some fights. The first fight that we have up on this card is Dela Cruz versus Israilov. And Dela Cruz is a very big and powerful athlete. I liked his tape. He's got explosive KO power. He's 3-0 as a pro with 3 round 1 finishes. Was an amateur champion in a fight that I actually don't think is listed on his Tapology, but you can watch it on YouTube, where he was an amateur champion. So he had some, decent amateur experience before turning pro, and he was supposed to be fighting Joseph Holmes, the former UFC fighter. That fight ended up getting scrapped, though. So now he's here against Israilov, who is 3-1 out of Russia. And, between 2018 and 2021, this guy beat 3 cans, and then he lost his last fight to Shamil Yamilov, who's actually pretty good, to be fair to him. And that was a fight that he actually was winning, having lots of success for 2 rounds. He was up 2018 and ended up getting triangled in the 3rd round. Israilov is a guy that has good wrestling. His stand-up is pretty decent as well. It's mostly just to set up that wrestling, but, he clearly has some experience, and I think he's definitely the more developed of the 2 prospects. And we also haven't seen this guy in 2 years, so he might look a lot different. Another thing I want to draw attention to is the fact that he has come over to the U.S. to fight regionally, so, that shows that him and his team are definitely committed to taking that next step in his MMA career, right? If you're fighting your regional fights in the U.S., it's easier to get called up for that short notice replacement bout at the Apex. Easier for them to have a look at you, see if they might want you on the Contender Series, or one of the other major organizations can have a look. So I definitely like to see that initiative out of him. However, in this fight, I'm seeing a lot more upside in this Dela Cruz guy. He's Cuban, fighting out of Texas. He just seems to be an athletic freak, man. I mean, physically, the way this guy's put together, it's very impressive. It just seems like a lot more of the upside in that department is definitely going to be on his side. I think he probably is a little bit more raw, but, there is more room for error the earlier on in your career, right, before you get into those really tough matchups. This is definitely the toughest matchup he's ever had. And, I get it, guys. We've seen Dela Cruz get taken down before. The experience, while I said, Israilov is kind of fighting cans, Dela Cruz has not been fighting, world champions either, right? So both of these guys have a lot to prove. I think both of them are pretty promising, but I'm kind of leaning towards Dela Cruz as the underdog here. I feel like he just has more upside, much better athlete, more power, and, just kind of as a general note, I'm not really saying this pertains, necessarily to this matchup particularly, but we're starting to see the meta of MMA change a little bit, right? When Khabib became champion and that dominant, crushing top pressure style that a lot of these Russian fighters are bringing in their process was all the rage at that point. And since then, day in, day out, people have been working on how do we beat this style? How do we combat this? And the way that fights are scored now is changing as well. We're seeing differences in that aspect, so you do have to kind of be careful with these Russian prospects who are incorporating such a grapple-heavy approach into their process. Like I said, that's not necessarily a commentary on that's how this fight is going to go or anything like that. That's just a general note that I'm making. But I do feel like Dela Cruz is more of the upside. I like him as the underdog in this fight. And, this is one that I think someone's going to look -1,000 in, right? I think either Dela Cruz is going to come out and the athleticism gap is going to be huge and he's going to find a monster knockout, or it's going to be like, wow, Israilov is just taking him down at will and grinding him out easily to a dominant win. So I think whoever wins this one is going to look really good, and I'm definitely excited to see how this one plays out. This actually might be my most anticipated fight on the card, just because I think these are 2 good prospects here that are really, really under the radar. So we'll see how this one plays out. Next fight up, we got Richie Maranda versus Chapman. Chapman is a 6-10-1 fighter on short notice here. Maranda is 6-1 with 5 finishes, 3-1 in the LFA. His only loss was a split decision to Keegan Genrick, who we saw pick up a win on the last LFA card. So yeah, do you guys want me to say anything else about the... Okay, you want a little bit more? Okay. To Chapman's credit, I would go out on a limb and say he probably has the best resume of any 6-10 fighter I've ever seen. He managed to beat Jacob Rosales and Chase Gibson, so that's honestly pretty impressive, man. Let's call a spade a spade. Those are good wins. But I just think Maranda is better here. Chapman is coming in on short notice at 35 years old. Miranda's like a minus 1,000 favorite, so I don't feel like I really have to spend too much time on this one. I think he wins the fight. I'm not going to be betting it. On to the next. Okay, next up we have Melissa Croden versus Katarina Leonard, and oh man, I tried for this fight, guys. All right, I tried. Croden is 4-2. She's from Calgary, Alberta. I believe she's training out of Texas for this camp. She's 4-2. She lost to Jacqueline Cavalcanti and Evelyn Martins, who are both in major organizations now, so there's no shame in those losses. She kind of has the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson stance going on out there a little bit. Got her hands low, that kind of bouncy karate-type stance. She's got good hand speed, and she's got pretty good size. Leonard is going to be across the cage from her in this one, and, she is much more experience. I think she's fought better names and beat better names. Alexa Connors is a win that Leonard has on her resume. I think that's probably the best win that either of them have. It was an impressive win as well. She has lost to Sinead Kavanaugh, Sarah Kaufman. She lost to Pani Kianzad on The Ultimate Fighter. So we kind of know what level she's not at this point, in my opinion. But I'm not sure we really know how well she's going to stack up against Melissa Croden here. I mean, Leonard was very active in her come-up. She's 33 years old now, been a little bit less active lately. But, she's been fighting this year. She got a boxing match in, and she's definitely training at the better gym here at Elevation Fight Team, in my opinion. That's one of the best gyms that you can be training out of right now currently. She's there with JJ Aldrich, who's also in fight camp, also fighting this week. So I'm sure that the atmosphere and training has been very good. And, like I said, guys, I really tried with this one. I really want to give you something here. I wanted to say that I think Leonard will win just because there is a lot to like on that side. She's aggressive. She's going to come forward. But I don't know what to do with this one, guys. I'll tell you what not to do. What not to do is go out and lay a big chalk price on Melissa Croden, because I just don't think that's a very good idea. If this fight were evens, I guess I agree with Croden being the favorite. I mean, I think she's got some size here. I think maybe she can stay on the outside and land some straight shots right down the pipe. But I am not enthusiastic about this fight in any capacity. I would advise against laying a big chalk number on Melissa Croden, but, I guess if you put a gun to my head and say, who do you think is going to win? I guess I'll lean that side. I didn't want to lean that side, but just going to the tape, it's like, it's hard to really feel good about either of them. And then, Leonard, like I said, I think she has better experience. I think she's training at a better camp. I think she's getting rounds in with better fighters. But, she's got the OnlyFans thing going on too, man. I don't know what to do with this one. Like I said, guys, I tried. Use your own discretion here. I would advise against laying chalk here. But like I said, if it were at evens, I guess I'll slightly edge toward Melissa Croden. Next fight up, we have Alden Correa coming up against Aaron LaFarge. This is a good fight right here. Alden Correa is a very familiar name on these Texas LFA cards, and he was a very bright prospect. He fell in some hard times, losing 2 in a row, but got back on track in his last fight with a win. And those 2 losses that I mentioned were to Michael Sear and Joseph Camacho. Those are 2 good fighters, and Correa is still very young. He's still 25 years old, so I'm not really going to hold that against him too much. He's athletic. He's a very good grappler. He's flexible, very well-versed, and he does well in the scrambles and those transition areas of the fight. LaFarge is going to be the older fighter here at 32 years old. He comes from a wrestling background. I believe he was an NAIA All-American, and he was the 125-pound champion at Smash Global. He lost his last fight to a Canadian prospect in James Clark on CFFC. LaFarge is a good fighter, man. He's a good athlete. I think he's a tough test for Correa. I think this version of Alden Correa is going to be up to the challenge here, though. I think his grappling is going to come in handy, in these wrestling exchanges. And I think this is a step up for Correa once again. After he got his bounce back win, I think they're giving him another guy that's a little bit more up the ladder than his last opponent. But I think he can get it done. Let's see if he can. I'm not enthusiastic about the price, but I think I'm going to side with Alden Correa to get this one done here. Co-main event is going to see another hot prospect from Texas in Fernandez here. Kevin Fernandez coming up against the guy we just talked about, Joseph Camacho. And Fernandez is a great grappler. He's 6-1 as a pro, 4-1 on LFA. He is currently on a 3-fight win streak and has finished all 3 of those fights. 2 of them in the first round, 1 in the second. And his one loss in his pro career has been to Jordan Harris. I didn't think that fight was a great look for him. Watching that one, it's not the greatest look. But he was 22 years old there. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. He's now newly 24, so still even now, he's still very young, still has tons of potential. And Joseph Kamacho, on the other hand, in my opinion, is a finished product at this point. And to his credit, a pretty good one. He's a good fighter. We've seen him halt an up-and-coming Texas product before in Alden Correa. And I think that Kamacho is going to be a great test for Fernandez here. I think he's going to offer just the right amount of pressure on the feet to see how improved Kevin really is in this fight. And I think he's also physical enough to where it isn't just a clear as day, all Fernandez has to do is take him down, and it should be business as usual, right? I think, don't get me wrong, I think the path for Fernandez here definitely is grappling, but I don't think it's so blatantly obvious that it's how could he not just employ the strategy and win. I think he's definitely going to face some serious and legitimate resistance from Kamacho in this fight. And when I saw this announced, I was expecting the line to be way too wide for Fernandez and to be sitting here telling you, probably shouldn't bet him. And it opened that way, but it has come in quite a bit. And I think if you got a huge number on Kamacho, nice job. I think it's a good bet. I think it's a close fight. Now we're looking at around minus 150, minus 160 range on Kevin Fernandez, and I think that's fair. Me personally, I'm not willing to pay that chalk to find out. I'm just going to use this one to gather more information, but a lean for me here. I do think I'm going to lean Kevin Fernandez, the younger guy. I think he's making more improvements in between fights, and I do think he has that grappling that, in Camacho's loss, which was to Cody Davis, that's obviously not a bad loss at all, but he lost on the grappling, and Kevin Fernandez is another guy that's a good grappler, so I feel like, the path for Fernandez is there. I'm going to lean towards his direction here, but like I said, I'm not willing to lay the chalk to find out on this one. I'm just going to enjoy this one, and we'll see how improved or how not improved Kevin Fernandez looks here. And likewise, we'll see what Kamacho looks like here. And if he gets a big win, that could put him in a good position to take the next step in his career. So this should be a good fight between two good fighters. I'm looking forward to this one. Great co-main event. Should be a good one on Friday night. Moving on to the main event, we have Landry Ward coming up against Alfred Walker in this fight. And Landry Ward, in my opinion, is one of the better featherweight prospects out right now regionally. He's very big for the weight class. He's training at Killcliff MMA. And he started his pro career 3-0 on XKO. He had some amateur experience in that promotion as well. Then went on a 4-1 stint in Cambodia and won his LFA debut in his last fight. Now, my one gripe about Landry Ward, I don't think he has any unbelievable finishing upside in my opinion. And that's kind of the one reason I'm not all the way sold on this guy yet. But there's something here, man, for sure. There's something here. He's a good fighter. He knows what he's doing. He's got good experience. We've seen him demonstrate that. We've seen him demonstrate his skills plenty of times now in the regional scene. I think he is well deserving of this main event showcase spot on this LFA card. He's also training at a great camp at Killcliff. In my opinion, that's the best room that you can be in currently. I think they do a lot of good work there. They have tons of good training partners to work with. And, he's working with good guys like an Impa Kasanganai, like an Ange Lusso, like Alvin Espinoza. Good guys that are making their mark in the major organizations they're competing in and that are definitely challenging you in the training room. Alfred Walker, on the other hand, is, I said I'm not super sold on, the finishing upside for Landry Ward, just not particularly in this fight, just in general. Alfred Walker, that's not the case. This guy's a finisher. 9 of his 11 wins have come inside the distance. He got a big KO in his last win. He has a knockout win over Solo Hatley Jr. That's a nice one. And he's very athletic, very powerful. He's got lots of pro kickboxing experience as well. Personally, I think he's a little bit overmatched here from an overall MMA perspective, right? I'm not saying he can't win. I think he's definitely live to find a finish. I just think he's kind of finish reliant here. I see Ward winning more of the minutes. He's on a great upward trajectory right now, training, like I said, in my opinion, in the best room with good training partners. I think the Lone Star Kid wins in the Lone Star State on Friday, but it should be a really fun fight, and Alfred Walker's going to bring a fight for sure. He's going to bring some danger, and like I said, he could find that knockout, but in my opinion, I think Landry Ward's the more complete MMA fighter, and I think that he's going to find a way to win on Friday night. So that's going to do it for the show today, guys. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I really appreciate it. All the best with your bets on LFA, on UFC, on whatever you're betting on this weekend, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.